I think this would be an anomaly anywhere it would have taken place, whether it's Southern Ohio or anywhere else.
New video shows the reactions of those 4 Ciders family members as they were taken to jail after deputies said they found 16 children in their home. I'll take you through these videos and what they show us. And we'll also look at what's likely going on inside the investigation right now. I'm Anjanette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. Four members of the Ciders family were booked into jail more than 2 weeks ago on child endangering charges, and
Different story. This wasn't a sudden break from reality. This was a system of prolonged, calculated isolation that operated in plain sight for nearly 2 decades. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Project Cold Case, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence.
Video from the jail's Sally Port shows a sheriff's van pulling into the jail. The Ciders aren't the only ones in the van, so it takes some time for the corrections officers to get them out of the vehicle. The first Ciders family members that jail staff removed from the van is the oldest, 73-year-old Gary Ciders Sr. It appears the officers...
Video from the jail Sally Port shows a sheriff's van pulling into the jail. The CERS aren't the only ones in the van, so it takes some time for the corrections officers to get them out of the vehicle. The first CERS family members that jail staff removed from the van is the oldest 73-year-old Gary Ciders Sr. It appears the officers are having some trouble getting him out of that van. The jail intake footage begins with a logistical problem. 4 adults, 16 children, and a house that would later be described by the Venton County Sheriff as containing conditions worse than what most of...
to get them out of the vehicle. The first Ciders family members that jail staff removed from the van is the oldest, 73-year-old Gary Ciders Sr. It appears the officers are having some trouble getting him out of that van. They're at the back of the vehicle for a while as they try to help him out. And then an officer brings a wheelchair out from the jail so Gary Sr. can sit in it so the jail staff can safely move him into the jail for the booking process to begin. Now, we know that there are concerns about Gary Sr.'s health and his ability to walk. He's currently being treated for a serious medical condition at the hospital. But back on June 30th, that serious medical condition wasn't known to jail staff. That was only discovered after he fell on the way to jail and was taken to the hospital for that injury. At this point, Gary Sr. is safely in the wheelchair, and the officers prepare to move him from the Sally Port to the jail. He appears to have a white bandage on his shoulder. Why? We don't know. At the same time, other officers are trying to get Gary Jr. out of the back of the van. Gary Jr. is in handcuffs, so he is pulled from the back of the van so he can be led into the jail hallway with his father. Interestingly enough...
Well, we will keep an eye on it and see where it goes. Rob Junk, thank you so much for joining me. We appreciate it. Oh, you're entirely welcome. Thank you, Anjanette. Now, we ask you to look at the evidence. The Ohio Attorney General's office has stated that this is an ongoing investigation and additional charges are expected. The public record contains a press release from the Ohio Attorney General dated July 1st, 2026, titled Update on Venton County Abuse Case. Read the official statement. Compare the official language, prolonged and extreme interfamilial neglect and abuse, with the images you see in the jail video. Ask yourself, how many systems, medical, educational, social services, failed these 16 children before the state arrived with a search warrant? This isn't just a story about one family in southern Ohio. It's a story about accountability and how we choose to use the documents that are available to us. The answer isn't in a news headline, it's in the evidence, if you choose to follow it. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Project Cold Case, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive. We follow the evidence. The CZ.A.
different. She's practically cowering. She looks scared. The corrections officer asks Christina a number of questions, which she appears to answer. Elizabeth simply stands by and watches as this entire process unfolds. Then it's Elizabeth's turn to be searched. After answering a few questions, she's patted down the whole 9 yards. This process takes place before each of the Ciders family members are moved to another area.
She's practically cowering. She looks scared. The corrections officer asks Christina a number of questions which she appears to answer. Elizabeth simply stands by and watches as this entire process unfolds. As the booking process unfolds, Christina Ciders, 67, the matriarch of the family, enters the jail hallway. She is handcuffed and connected to a belly chain. She stands up straight and answers questions. Then comes Elizabeth Ciders, 33, the wife of Gary Jr. She is not handcuffed. She is carrying papers. The reference transcript describes her body language as practically cowering. She looks scared. Her hair is wet, suggesting a recent shower. A mark on her left arm resembles a bruise. This is the same Elizabeth Ciders who, according to court records, married Gary Ciders Jr. in March 2008 when she was 15 years old. Her parents consented. 2 months later, she gave birth to the couple's first child, now 18. The defendants have all pleaded not guilty, but the physical evidence in the room tells a different story of a hierarchy of perpetrators and victims that began long before law enforcement arrived.
We do know that the children, though, appeared to be on social media. They had social media accounts. They had phones. That's our understanding. So they're going to be downloading a number of devices they seized from that house. How telling could that be in assisting with this investigation? And also, that can take a lot of time.
I think that'd be very telling as far as the investigation. And we did that on the Road and Manley Gilly homicides. The our sheriff's office and our other agencies in Pike County do that on a regular basis. You can glean a
We
lot
don't
of
know how many devices were seized. We do know that the children, though, appeared to be on social media. They had social media accounts. They had phones. That's our understanding. So they're going to be downloading a number of devices they seized from that house. How telling could that be in assisting with this investigation? And that can also take a lot of time. The Attorney General's office has stated that electronic devices seized from the home will be analyzed by the crime lab. This is a key comment, as the reference transcript points out. The children, despite being isolated from the outside world, allegedly had phones and social media accounts. However, those accounts contain no photos of the children themselves, only reposted
of one or the other. Jail staff documented several tattoos on Gary Jr. They have names and hearts and crosses. One is a cross with a sword. One is an outlaw tattoo with a peace sign. In the intake video, you can see Gary Jr. show the officer asking him the questions his arms. He later shows his legs, likely showing the many tattoos. At one point, Gary Jr. looks back and he waves at someone. We don't know who he's waving at, but he appears to talk too. But there are so many questions that remain in this case. Many, many questions. What is going on with this investigation? Why did the deputies go to the house in the first place with a search warrant? Gary Jr. also faces 4 public indecency charges related to alleged incidents at his home during the last week of May, but that likely wouldn't be enough to get a search warrant. The deputies were looking for evidence of a crime at the home. That's what a search warrant is for. And the Attorney General has said.
And anytime you have an alleged abuse and neglect case, it's always sad. Yeah, I'm wondering if these phones were possibly given to the kids to entertain them, to keep them from just, wanting to go outside. Instead, you give your kid a screen. Most parents want to keep their kids off a screen. But the digital clues only deepen the mystery. How could a family with limited means afford multiple phones? The narrative of neglect collides with the reality of technology. A former prosecutor on the reference transcript suggests that giving the children phones was a deliberate strategy. Just hand the child a phone, put them in a room, and you just ignore them. The data from these devices, called logs, app usage, search history, could reveal everything from the extent of their isolation to potential outreach attempts that were missed.
phone dumps come out. And I imagine what they're going to do is send all these devices to BCI's the cyber crimes unit. They'll go through, download everything, review it. Hey, again, that's something I've been through before in other cases. I'm pretty familiar with the process. It does take a long time to do some of that stuff. It's based on manpower as well, too. And I'm sure.
And imagine what they're going to do is send all these devices to BCI's cybercrimes unit. They'll go through, download everything, review it. And again, that's something I've been through before in other cases. I'm pretty familiar with the process. It does take a long time to do some of that stuff. Meanwhile, the ticking clock of justice continues. All 4 defendants are being held on $300,000 bond. Under Ohio law, the state has 90 days to bring them to trial due to the speedy trial rule where every day in jail counts as 3. The complexity of this investigation, requiring medical evaluations, forensic interviews with potentially nonverbal children, and the downloading of digital evidence, means that timeline is nearly impossible to meet. A gag order has been granted in Gary Jr.'s case but is being challenged at the Ohio Supreme Court. The prosecution is in a race against the
Curious
clock.
about. It's come out, that Elizabeth and Gary Jr., obviously, they were married when she was 15. They went over to West Virginia to do that. Then, there's been some reporting about other Ciders family members, cousins, things of that nature, who were married at 15, 14, things like that. Rob, do you see that ever down that way?
One thing I'm really curious about, it's come out, that Elizabeth and Gary Jr., obviously they were married when she was 15. They went over to West Virginia to do that. Then, there's been some reporting about other Ciders, family members, cousins, things of that nature who were married at 15, 14, things like that. In Pike County, just next door, former prosecutor and current judge Rob Junk called those teenage marriages a giant red flag, saying that if he got wind of it, his first call would be to Children's Services and the sheriff. In Ohio, any adult having
because they could be very isolated, and it's been discussed by the Attorney General. He said something to the effect of, like, some of them may not even be verbal. So what kind of challenge does that pose in evaluating these children, do you think?
That could be very challenging. Of course, the children will be interviewed, but if they haven't gone to school, haven't been exposed to the outside world, the question is, what is their ability to communicate with others, relay the things that are alleged to have happened to them? That's the most important thing. And if the parents were keeping the children out of school under Ohio law, that is actually referred to as parental education neglect. When I was prosecutor, we would bring charges on parents for that on a regular basis through our truant officers.
How common is that for people maybe out in that area of Southeast Ohio?
So this is uncommon in your experience as a prosecutor to see a 15-year-old girl going off and getting married. Maybe it was more common, you said, in generations past. I think we all can see that has happened. But you're saying in your experience as a prosecutor, if you got wind of that, you'd be calling the cops and CPS, and then you better believe I would have, because any adult having sexual relations with a child under 16 is a crime. The questions are mounting faster than the answers. What prompted the original search warrant that led deputies to the house? Gary Ciders Jr. faces 4 public indecency charges related to alleged incidents in May 2026, but that likely would not have been enough probable cause for a search warrant.
Who would not be in school for years.
I think this would be an anomaly anywhere it would have taken place, whether it's Southern Ohio or anywhere else.
The Attorney General had said that they were going to be downloading devices, and that was a key comment as far as I'm concerned in this investigation. He talked about downloading devices. We don't know how many devices were seized. We do know that the children, though, appeared to be on social media. They had social media accounts. They had phones. That's our understanding. So they're going to be downloading a number of devices they seized from that house. How telling could that be in assisting with this investigation? And also, that can take a lot of time.
I think that'd be very telling as far as the investigation. And we did that on the Roden Manley Gilly homicide.